coming. If you could please rise, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Before we get started, the first thing I wanted to say, to be clear, is the board is not going to make any decision tonight on this application. This is the first in probably at least one or two or three, perhaps, hearings about this project. But we're here tonight to have the applicant present their proposed project to us, for us to understand it, and for the board to ask qualifying questions, and then to open it up to the public for public comment. Now, before we get too far into it, I want to say that I apologize for the overflow condition tonight. Now, we did expect more people than usual, but certainly not this crowd. So, certainly for the people in Marcus Chris Hall, and I understand you could hear me, and the people in William Gill Theater upstairs, everyone who wants to have a chance to speak will have a chance to speak. If not tonight, at a subsequent public hearing, or by entering your comments into the written record. And that's very important that all our comments get written into the record. Now, right before we came out, the board huddled, and we questioned the fact, well, because of the size of the crowd here, and quite frankly, it's great to see everybody from the Hyde Park turn out, because it says to us that there's a lot of interest in this application and in what we all value, is the suburban quality of our character of our village. And that, I think, goes to what we're here tonight for. But we huddled to say, well, given the crowd, should we cancel tonight and reschedule for another day in a larger venue when we're all together? Now, that might work out, but the downside is everybody has already turned out, and we don't want to waste your time having made the effort to come out here and hear about the application and to voice your concerns or voice your questions about it. So what we'd like to do is go on with the hearing tonight as it is, as cramped as we are, and we do apologize, but knowing that there will be a subsequent hearing and we will have a more spacious venue, and I will ask the superintendent of schools if we can make use of the road school, perhaps as we have in the past, for that occasion. And the superintendent is nodding affirmatively to me. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it. So, so let me first talk a little about the proceedings tonight and how tonight's public hearing is going to be conducted. And it's very much the way that any public hearing that we have here in New Hyde Park is done. First of all, we do need everybody's cooperation to keep things quiet, because the stenographer is here and the stenographer is recording all the comments. And that's very important that all the pertinent comments get recorded. If the stenographer can't hear the speaker, then their comments can't be accurately recorded into the record. That's very important, because in the event that the board denies the application, the applicant has a right to appeal. And that's happened actually in the last two special use hearings that we've had here in the village. The board heard the hearings, we actually denied the application, the applicant sued the village, and the judge relies on what's in the written record based on the facts and data that's supported in the record. So it's very important that we allow the stenographer to capture everything that's said tonight. So we do need everybody's cooperation to be quiet, so that only the speaker that's recognized by the board is speaking at the time. So I really do appreciate everybody's cooperation on that aspect. Secondly, we'll plan to end the meeting by 10 o'clock tonight. And as I said, it will be continued to another date. And as I said, the village board does not intend to decide the project tonight. We envision that there may be follow-up information the board may require of the applicant after tonight's proceedings, necessitating further hearings. The record, as I said, will remain open for written comment until the hearing is ultimately closed. It's possible that not everyone here will have an opportunity to speak tonight who desires to because of constraints of time. Those that do not get an opportunity to speak tonight may speak at a future hearing or submit their comment in writing. The village residents can send their written comment to Ms. Catherine Hillman, Village Clerk Treasurer, Village of New Hyde Park, 1420 Jericho Turnpike, New Hyde Park, New York, 11040, or by email at bnhp.org. And please use the subject line 300 South 12th Street. So regarding tonight's agenda, the applicant will present the project. We ask again that there be no interruptions during the presentation, except perhaps by the Board of Trustees to ask qualifying questions as the application is being presented. It's imperative again that the stenographer can hear clearly that everything that's being said. In order to make an informed decision as to what's in the best interest of the Village of New Hyde Park, the Village Board is interested in hearing input from New Hyde Park Village residents, elected officials, and who represent village residents and technical experts regarding the proposed project. Anyone who wishes to address the board may do so by submitting their name and address on these cards that were distributed. If you want to make a, if you want to be recognized, you raise your hand. We have staff on hand. They'll come and they'll give you a card, give it back to them. They'll run it up here, and we'll take them in sequence. Now, you don't need to write down your question on the card. We just want to be able to call people because they may be upstairs, they may be at Village in Marcus Chris Hall. So we want to make the announcement. The next three speakers will be so-and-so, so they can make their way and speak here before the court stenographer and before the board. So that's the process, and again, apologize for the lack of facilities in this venue. Now I'd like to take a minute to put tonight's application in context. Independent of the application we'll hear tonight, the Village Board previously announced its intention to redevelop the industrial district along the Long Island Railroad into a vibrant new pedestrian-friendly community hub for our village. We refer to the project as a station plaza. What I'm going to do is try to put some visuals up. Bear with me. Okay. So that's a look at 2nd and 3rd Avenue along the railroad tracks. The vision is to create a new main street for the Village of New Hyde Park with shops, stores, restaurants, pubs, and perhaps a microbrewery that becomes an attractive downtown shopping district for the village. The drab, unattractive industrial buildings would be replaced by attractive new buildings for mixed use, commercial and residential. We have adopted a colonial design that resembles Old Town Alexandria, Virginia. And if I could, I'm going to display that. So that is essentially the theme, the motif. And for those of you in Marcus Chris Hall who can't see this, we'll certainly circulate it. We'll put it up on the village website. But that is essentially the look. And looking down Second and Third Avenue as it looks today, we seek to make improvements. So the village board undertook to improve Jericho Turnpike as a part of the Operation Main Street project. The goal was to improve the aesthetics of Jericho with streetscaping and landscape center medians and bump out. The objective has been to calm traffic flow through the village, make the area more inviting to merchants and customers and safer for pedestrians. While the turnpike has improved, the steady flow of traffic on Jericho continues to present challenges to making this New Hyde Park's version of Main Street USA. But when Governor Cuomo announced his intention to install a third track and eliminate 3 grade crossings in New Hyde Park, I stressed to the governor that our overriding concern is that the suburban character of the village of New Hyde Park be preserved or improved. This has been the principle that has guided my public service to New Hyde Park, including 10 years on the New Hyde Park Garden City Park Board of Education and 18 years serving the village board. Every decision that I and my colleagues on this board and boards previous have considered that the simple guiding principle: will the proposed change preserve or improve the suburban character of the village of New Hyde Park? This is the same principle that will guide the board in its consideration of tonight's application. So to illustrate some renderings of what the vision is of our second Main Street, is these before and after pictures, if you will. So this is looking at the railroad crossing, the station today, and a vision of what it might look like in the future. Now these are renderings, these are just illustrative, and it's certainly nothing that is set in stone, but it's something to guide folks who look at the village and look for opportunities to make investments in it. So again, some overlay. Okay. So sorry for that. So you can see, you recognize this today is behind the station and what it's envisioned to be in the future. Again, today, tomorrow. So this is opened up behind the station itself and has a broader setback and more of a park look. Today, what's envisioned in the future. Today, I guess our overlay district. Today, and okay. So that's the sort of thing that makes tonight's proceedings difficult. So again, the vision of tomorrow. So, there we go. So that's the vision of what we're trying to do with our Operation Main Street. And so along those lines, my request to the governor and his team to release funding for the third track, we realized we had a new and once-in-a-lifetime chance to transform this area along the trackside from an industrial zone into a vibrant downtown area where residents could shop, dine, relax, and socialize. The village secured the first $5 million grant from the governor to refine and develop our vision. The transit-oriented development creates great new opportunities for New Hyde Park. This residential unit attracts the millennials who work in New York City, wish to live in New Hyde Park, but aren't ready for a single-family home. At the other end of the spectrum, the empty nesters who are ready to downsize from their homes and remain in New Hyde Park. These two demographics make up 40% of the population within 5 miles of the New Hyde Park train station. Property values for our single-family homes will appreciate, while our property taxes will decrease as they are offset by more valuable properties generating tax revenue in this district to the village, the town and county, and the school districts as well. The goal can be accomplished only while improving the suburban character of our village with carefully planned and attracting looking complementary uses. To enable this plan, the village board created an overlay district in our industrial zone to entertain applications for greater bulk and density than previously permitted under the zoning code. Tonight's application is the first to come before the village board under the overlay district. Whether the project that is presented tonight fulfills the goals of our station plaza in a way that improves the suburban character of our village is what the village board will consider most carefully. So that's the lead-in, if you will, and thank you for your patience in setting the context of tonight's application. And at that point, I will turn over to the applicant, framing it up as a special use case number 1803, 300 South 12th Street, seeking to approve to develop a 4-story building with 4,916 square feet of retail and 71 apartments. 300 South 12th Street, New Hyde Park, New York, Section 195-32, Development Incentive Bonuses. Adjustments to the permissible density, coverage, floor area ratios, parking requirements, setbacks, topographical changes, area, height, open space, use or other provisions of the New Hyde Park zoning and law use laws for a specific purpose authorized by the Board of Trustees. So, who will make the application?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board.
Can't hear you.
Who's it read? Do you want to put up the same plan? That kind of scary.
Yeah. The laptop.
I don't have a complete right now. You want to just put up this?
Just take a picture. That's perfect. Just let it get some space. Thank you.
The air conditioning is on, by the way.
Just bear with us for a minute, folks. For those of you who are not in the hearing room, we're just arranging, having technical.
Testing, hello.
Ready? Okay. So would you just state your name?
Hello. Okay, good evening, Mayor, members of the board. My name is Andrea Tsoukalis-Curto. I'm with the firm of Porcelli, Deegan, Toronto, with offices at 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, 300 South 12th Street, LLC. With me today is Ernesto Trissini. He's the sole member of 300 South 12th Street. Martin Pasanti, the applicant's architect. Gail Pesner, environmental planner with VHB. Patrick Lenahan, traffic and parking consultant with VHB. And Carlos Vargas, landscape architect with VHB. As mentioned, this is an application for incentive bonuses pursuant to Village Code Section 195-3.2. My client proposes to construct a 4-story mixed-use building with 4,916 square feet of retail on the first floor and 71 apartments. 11 apartments on the ground floor and 20 apartments on each of the 3 floors above, as well as 2 levels of underground parking. The breakdown of the apartments are 53 one-bedroom units and 18 two-bedroom units, ranging in size from 630 square feet to 1,068 square feet. The building will also offer amenities to its residents, such as a fitness center, an open-air courtyard with seating and lounge areas, and a rooftop with seating and lounge areas. The area south of 3rd Avenue and north of the proposed building is proposed with an esplanade with publicly accessible amenities such as bike racks and benches. The building is designed with an Alexandria facade with varied fenestration to provide aesthetic appeal and to break up the massing of the building. And that's a photo of the building before you. Just to give a little bit of background regarding the property. The premises is located on the southeast corner of 3rd Avenue and South Street with frontage on South 12th Street. I'm sorry?
South 12th Street.
Is that what I didn't say that? Okay, 3rd Avenue and South 12th Street with frontage on South 12th Street, 3rd Avenue, and Bear Place. It has a lot area of 0.45 acres, and it's situated within 3 of the village's zoning districts: the industrial zone, the accessory parking district, and the development incentive bonus overlay district. It's currently improved with a 1 to 2 story brick building containing vacant industrial space, a 1-story brick building previously used as retail space, and a 2-story single-family residence. We do have photos of the existing building if you want to put them up. Who has the laptop? So, as you can see from the photos as soon as she gets them up, the building, is not particularly attractive and has been underutilized for years. Those are different photos of the site. As mentioned by the mayor, this site is a prime location for transit-oriented development because of its proximity to the Long Island Railroad, which is directly adjacent to the site. As you all know, transit-oriented development has been utilized over the past two decades to revitalize downtown areas in Long Island. 3 recent and well-known projects are the Patchogue Station in downtown Patchogue, which has a 291-unit apartment complex and is a walking distance to the train station. The Mineola Station, which is the Allure, that has 275 units, and it's 2 blocks from the Long Island Railroad. And the Farmingdale Station, the Cornerstone, which is a 42-unit development adjacent to the train station. Despite the differences in size and magnitude of these projects, the focus is the same: to create denser developments around train stations, to attract businesses and young professionals, and to revitalize downtown areas. The other benefits to this type of development is less traffic and congestion by encouraging
Don't mean to be rude.
Control it, please.
You must.
We need some self-control and order. Thank you.
Okay, let me explain. The idea is to encourage mass transit. And if you're right next to the railroad, you're going to be encouraged to use the railroad. And if you have a beautiful downtown area, you're going to be encouraged to walk and to enjoy your downtown area. So the idea is to create a walkable, pedestrian-friendly neighborhood. And that is the goal of all transit-oriented developments. So the other thing that I wanted to touch upon, and the mayor touched upon it a little bit, is that the new norm on Long Island is adult children, living with their parents well into their 30s because they can't afford homes. And the other norm is that our young professionals are leaving Long Island and they're going into cities with walkable downtowns where they can rent and they could walk to work and walk to restaurants and other hubs in the area. That's what young people want these days. They don't want suburban sprawl and they can't afford suburban sprawl. So this has been a systematic problem for our region for a very long time. And all of our regional planners agree that this lack of housing for these young professionals has and will negatively impact Long Island's economy. So the other demographic that the transit-oriented development serves is the empty nesters. So people who no longer need or no longer want or prefer to just rent near mass transit. They don't need to own a home. They don't want the maintenance of a home. They want to be able to rent. They want the freedom to be able to, jump on a train and enjoy the city and come back. It's just they have different perspective on life at that point. So the other thing I wanted to touch on, and I think the mayor touched on it as well, is that this project dovetails perfectly with the Long Island Railroad Main Line Expansion Project, which also aims to strengthen the region's economy. So I think, again, you mentioned that this is going to improve your walkability and it's going to revitalize the community because there's going to be no grade crossings and there's going to be full access to the north and south tracks. So again, all of this is to create a better community for all of you to be able to enjoy this downtown area. So getting back to the application that's before you today with respect to incentive bonuses. Village Code Section 195-3.2 authorizes this board to grant development incentive bonuses to properties within the overlay district. The premises is wholly within the overlay district and complies with all of its regulations. The purpose of this legislation is to encourage this very type of transit-oriented development, which will not only benefit the applicant, but the community at large by providing much-needed rental housing for the demographics described, young professionals and empty nesters. The Village Incentive Bonus legislation gives this board all the powers set forth in Village Law 7703. Namely, the board may grant incentive bonuses in exchange for the applicant providing one or more facilities or amenities that will benefit the public. The applicant seeks incentive bonuses for the proposed use, the height of the proposed building, required parking, and parking dimensions. Regarding the use, as mentioned, the applicant is proposing a mixed retail and residential use. Regarding the height of the proposed building is 4 stories. The permitted is 2.5 stories. As noted on the notice of disapproval, the required parking for the proposed apartments is 142 stalls. This is based on two parking stalls per residential dwelling. However, I do want to point out to you that your code specifically provides that for apartments, only 1 stall is required per unit. And that's pursuant to Village Code 195-49B2. That would require a total of 71 stalls required for the apartments. Mr. Lenihan has prepared an extensive report regarding the parking demand for the project, and he will explain in greater detail why the proposed 71 stalls will be sufficient for this type of development. The code also requires 1 stall per 200 square feet of retail, which equates to 25 stalls for the proposed retail on the first floor. We are proposing a total of 76 parking stalls, 71 designated for each of the apartments, 1 for each apartment, and 5 stalls for the employees working at the retail locations. Again, Mr. Lenihan will go into that in further detail. The other incentive bonus zoning relief that we need is for the required parking dimension. The code requires each stall to be 10 by 25 feet, and we're proposing stall sizes that are 9 by 18, which again is consistent with Code Section 195-49B1. Mr. Lenihan has confirmed that this size stall is typical and would be sufficient for the proposed use. All right, just to go through your code and the incentive bonuses a little more so we can all have a bigger picture on where your authority is granted. Village Code 195-32 authorizes the board to grant incentive bonuses. Specifically, it states, for applicants who provide or make provision for amenities and facilities in this section, the Board of Trustees may, at its discretion, award the incentive bonuses by varying the required density, coverage of floor area ratios, parking requirements, building heights, required setbacks, topographical changes, open space, and permitted uses in the district. The board therefore is empowered to grant the bonuses for all the zoning relief that I just described. Now on to the fun stuff, the amenities. In exchange for this zoning relief, the applicant has offered the following public amenities. Streetscape. As depicted on the site amenities plan, let's get that up so that everybody can see it. It's the site amenity plan dated February 25th, 2019. No, that's not it. It's part of the original application package. Here. Mark, you want to keep her? If you can. I can keep going until, unless you want me to wait. No. You want me to wait?
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so the plan I'm referring to is the streetscape plan dated February 25th, 2019. The proposed streetscape amenities include decorative lighting fixtures, landscaping, masonry pavers, benches, and bike racks. The total cost of these improvements estimated at $200,000. An Alexandria facade for the building, as depicted on the elevation plans dated February 25th, 2019. The estimated cost of the facade is $890,000 due to the ornate architectural features associated with this style of architecture, to include varying window styles and roofs and stucco colors. A typical stucco facade would cost approximately $309,000. So the value of this amenity is approximately $581,000. As you can see from the rendering we had up before, this building is beautifully designed and will enhance the overall character of the area and the quality of life for the people in this community. You can see the before and after in that photo as well. And the mayor already mentioned this too, but this architecture is prevalent in Alexandria, Virginia, and which is also a walkable city. It's on the Potomac River, just south of Washington, D.C., so that's what this is mimicking. In addition to the streetscape and Alexandria facade, the applicant has offered a payment in lieu in the amount of $355,000, and that is $5,000 per unit, to be paid towards the village's industrial development fund, which provides benefits to the community. So the total value of all the amenities offered by the applicant is $1,136,000. Also, as required by your code, my client will also provide 10% affordable housing. I also wanted to mention that we are pursuing IDA financing for the project, but we're going to be offering the village, we're going to make the village whole with a community host agreement. I did also want to mention that Ms. Finkelstein is here today, that I have been in contact with the school board attorney. She reached out to the village asking about the project, and she wanted more information. I explained the project to her. I also provided a memo to her, which I'll be handing up to the board right now, in response to concern about school-age children being in this building. Ms. Pesner prepared a memo which concludes that at most, the project will generate between 3 and 7 school-age children. And that's again because of the demographics. You can't
Ladies and gentlemen, please be quiet.
There have been many, many studies done, and there have been many, many transit-oriented developments throughout Long Island.
Ladies and gentlemen,
This type of development does not generate school-age children. It does not attract families. They don't want to go into a one-bedroom for $2,800. They want to live in a house. 2 bedrooms are $3,800. So this is targeted to young professionals, and it's also targeted to empty nesters.
If I could ask you to keep your focus on the board
Sure,
and address the board and the board only.
Sure.
So,
I did want to submit the memo into the record.
okay, thank you.
This applicant's Exhibit A.
And do you also have the studies that back this up?
Yes, so the studies are attached to the memo.
Okay.
And Ms. Pesner is here today. She prepared the
Right.
memo. If you have additional questions for her, she can answer them. I just wanted to give a little bit of background regarding Mr. Dracini. Mr. Dracini builds reinforced concrete high-rise buildings, primarily in Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. And he's created buildings, he's helped construct buildings in Brooklyn, which are 57 stories and 40 stories, and Williamsburg, 42 stories, and just to give you an idea of the experience he has in buildings. He also served as a trustee for Local 14 Union of Operating Engineers Benefit Funds, and he recently retired this post because of his workload, but he did serve for 4 years, to give you a little flavor. I did want my other experts to speak, but if you have questions now, we can address them.
Does Mr. Dracini have experience in managing rental properties?
We currently use a...
I'm sorry, if you'll have to state your name and address.
Mr. Tassini owns 4 other buildings, and Rush Management manages the buildings for him.
Any other questions from the introduction? Okay, not at this time. We probably will have some questions on the study with regard to the
Sure.
school district.
I did want Mr. Prasante to go over the floor plans in greater detail and his design, Mr. Lenahan to go over his parking study, and Mr. Vargas prepared a sightline study. So it's up to you if you would like to ask questions first.
Well, I think just at this juncture, just ask questions of your opening statements. But,
Sure.
So, Trustee Palisco?
No, yeah, I had a quick question. The 4 other units, 4 other buildings, what are the locations?
West Hampton Beach, Hempstead, and Lyndhurst, New Jersey.
Thank you.
And if we could get those addresses for the record,
Sure.
not right now, but we'll...
That's fine. Any other questions?
Now we'll go on to the next speaker.
Okay, at this time I'd like Mr. Pasanti to present his floor plans. Okay.
Hi, Martin Pasante, architect, 178 Bayview Avenue, Northport, New York. Okay. Basically, the first floor of the building is going to be the retail, about 4,000 square feet of retail, a few apartments on the first floor. There'll be an entry lobby. Let me see if I can see it though. I want to use this section too. What we didn't mention before, see, I did some way over there then. I won't get a little point to it.
All right, we're here. I'll hold it up here.
All right. The building is going to be built around a courtyard. It's not going to be solid through. courtyard is over the first floor. I'm sorry. All right. What's that? Yeah. Here's the first floor. Just let you hold that. Again, the first floor is along the railroad side, and this side right here. The rest is surrounded by the apartments. The lobby comes in the middle of the building. There is a fitness room and a lounge for the apartment dwellers.
So the lobby entrance is on South 12th Street?
Yes.
Okay.
So you would enter the lobby, and you have a fitness area and an apartment lounge. And
Would you speak into the microphone so
I'm
we have
sorry.
people in other rooms?
yeah, there's some small retail uses along the train corridor. We're thinking more like a coffee shop, a bagel store, nothing really big. Food, some sort of food entities. From the second floor up.
And I'm sorry, before you leave the first floor, and aside from the retail facing the railroad tracks,
Yes.
the rest will be apartments around the perimeter of the building on the first
Or
floor?
in the residential portion, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, next floor would be all apartments surrounding the courtyard, which is open air up to the sky, so it's not an enclosed atrium or anything like that. There are two, like a north and a south side. There's two fire stairs on either side, two elevators on either side. The building is going to be, the other thing is I wanted to point out, the building will be completely non-combustible. It'll be made of reinforced concrete. The exterior will be brick and fiberglass cement siding, so there'll be no combustible materials. We're looking to provide a fully LEED compliant building. And by LEED, excuse me? No. Okay. I got it.
Got it?
Okay, there we go. Up on the roof, we plan on having some solar panels. Along the back residential side, there'll be no rooftop amenities bordering the residential. We also plan on having a green roof up there, which also puts us into the LEED categories. By providing a LEED building, the owner will get certain tax breaks, and also there's certain standards of LEED that comes with that. With the fully non-combustible building, we're going to be at the top of the list there. So this building is not going to by any means be poorly built. This is the point I'm trying to get at. Let me get to the elevations.
Excuse me, can you just explain the need for those in the crowd that don't understand the
LEED is something that's been brought up by the government, that if you get into the program, you have to have a fully compliant building, which means no formaldehyde. It's mainly all non-combustible materials. You have to provide bicycle racks. It's got to be an integrated building into the community. There's not many fully LEED compliant buildings. The only way to provide a fully LEED compliant building is to build non-combustible, which is no wood. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the other project that Andrea had mentioned before, the ones in Mineola, are completely wood building. Well, one of them is wood. It's a 6-story, right, Mineola, it's a 6-story wood building. This is going to be a completely reinforced concrete building. The floors will be concrete, the ceiling will be concrete. There'll be obviously tile on the floor. But that's just one point I wanted to make. You have any questions for me as far as the architecture goes? I'd be happy to answer them.
Fly suppression. Fly suppression.
Okay, well, it'll have to be fully sprinkled. So it's going to be a fully sprinkled building. Like I had double the amount of egress required, because I have 2 sets of fire stairs on either side. And all the windows are emergency escape rescue, which means that they can get to by a ladder truck. So there's really nothing in this building that's going to be able to burn except for the furniture that the people put in it.
The counselor mentioned 2 levels of underground parking.
Yes.
Do you have rendering?
Oh, you mean that section we had over here? Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll show it to you right now.
I'll hold it like this. The parking will be 2 levels, one level right underneath the first floor and the other level below that. They'll be 8 feet in height, so that it's not going to be too low. We'll have to do some shoring. It's going to cost extra money to get all this parking below there, but to provide all the parking, it's the only way we can do it.
Where's the entrance? I'm sorry, folks. Where is the entrance to the parking? How do you get into the parking facility?
Okay. That's site plan.
Here, the entrance is here.
The entrance to the parking garage is opposite the entrance to the lobby of the building. It's on the other street, on Bear Place. So you would come in and go down.
Okay. Okay.
A locked entry, yeah. It would be a locked entry garage. So, you know, that would be mainly for the apartment residents and the employees for the facilities above.
What accommodations are made for refuse collection and pickup?
I have a refuse trash chute, which would then come down into the garage, and the truck would be able to take the refuse out of there. Mainly, it's going to be has to be a cooled room that it lands in, and then they come take the refuse out of there. That's typically what we've been doing in most of the apartment buildings.
Right, and I believe our village code calls for the purchasable waste to be refrigerated, so that will be compliant with.
Exactly. Yeah. All refuse got to land in a refrigerated room, otherwise the odor it wouldn't be good for the apartment dwellers. So it wouldn't be good for.
And I read in the application that you'll have a private carder
Yes.
arrangement?
Yeah, this would be a private carding company.
So it will not be the village Department of Public Works picking up refuse at the
No,
facility?
would not impede on that, no. And as Andrea said, the one-bedroom apartments range from about 600 square feet to 750 square feet, which in my eyes is more, in my experience with the apartment buildings I've been working on, is mainly, surprisingly, it's been older couples that have been renting all the apartments. In the Huntington area, I've done quite a few, and it's mainly just been older people that have a place in Florida and are renting a place up here. We've had maybe one kid in all the apartments I've done so far.
How many is that? Would you say how many units?
I've got about 85 I've done in the village of Huntington. There's about 40 proposed in Floral Park right now. And the ones that we did in Floral Park over Koenig's restaurant, there's no children in that. That's all one-bedroom units over there right now. The other building is going to be getting underway right about now.
So the Huntington, you have 85 apartments?
85 apartments built there.
In
yeah.
one?
No, not in one spot.
No, and one child of the 85? I'm trying to get the...
Yeah, approximately. There's very few children. I mean, it's just a fact that the apartments aren't attracting the children. Plus the fact that they in Huntington they're a higher rent. They're $3,000 and $4,000 a month. Two-bedroom apartment rent. Oh. A two-bedroom apartment would range between 1,000 and 1,200 square feet.
Is 18 of those again?
No, 18. We have 18 and 53. Yeah,
Right, 18 two-bedroom and 53 one-bedroom.
Right. All the apartments would have a washer dryer. They're fully a granite counter, high-end kitchen. We're looking to present a very upscale apartment.
Yeah, one question. The underground parking, is there ventilation?
Yeah. By New York State code, we'll have to provide ventilation. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be quiet. I saw in the environmental assessment form, try to get to the correct question, but it was checked no, in that it was something to do with the airspace and not depriving neighbors of airspace. But if you're going up the 4 stories and there's a single-family home right to the south of the property there, does that obstruct the airspace of the adjoining home?
That home is, the ridge of that house is at 30, I believe it's at 32 feet, Carlos? We're gonna be at 40 feet. We're gonna be just about 8 feet above that.
8 feet above.
Above that
the
ridge of
neighboring-
that house, the neighboring home. There's another house up the block that I think is upwards of about 35 feet. New York State code is 35 feet for a height of a house. That's the top. 40 feet, to get 4 stories and 40 feet, that's why we did a reinforced concrete building to keep the floor structure thinner.
Was there any consideration given to stepping in the height, particularly by the residential house next door?
Almost like a pyramid effect?
Well, not a pyramid perhaps, but a terrace,
Right.
if you will.
No,
So-
I mean, that's something I can discuss with the owner, and, maybe some of the apartments could lose, some square footage if we had to. Step it back at the second floor and maybe then go up from there.
Do all of the apartments have natural light?
All of the apartments have natural light, yes. Every one of them would have the minimum of, I think it's 4% natural light for each bedroom and living space, so it's well above code.
Okay. And I think you mentioned before on the roof, on the south end of the building, I believe you had mentioned that there's no public space or open space where people can gather because it's close to the neighboring home. Is that correct? Can you describe what's on the roof,
Correct.
particularly on the south side?
Yeah, this would be the neighboring home right here. I'll turn this around for everybody. Which would be the solar panels here and a big green area roof here. That the grass on the roof is not really meant to be walked on. It's just meant to collect water and just be a green roof and not be a permeable surface. So our HVAC units are over here. The mini splits and the solar panels, and all the amenities would be along the railroad tracks.
The questions from the board on the physical layout of the property? Okay. Thank you.
So just to clarify, on the first floor, the shops would be
Microphone.
along the rail.
Can't hear you.
Down along the
The shops that will be on the, I don't know why my microphone isn't working. The shops on the first floor will only be along the rail.
Right.
That was my question. All right.
And then there's 11 apartment units on the first floor as well.
On the other side.
Yeah.
Right along there.
That's correct. At this time, I'd like Mr. Carlos Varga to come up to explain the line of sight study that he prepared. Can you put that up on the screen?
You would introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Carlos Vargas. I'm a landscape architect and certified artist with VHB, with offices located at 100 Motor Parkway in Hauppauge, New York. We've been hired by the applicant to conduct a line of sight study, and we picked predetermined locations based on presumed visibility. And if we start with the contextual map, we have, if you envision the area where the development is, the area presumed where there would be the most visibility would be the residential communities south, east, and west of the development, particularly on South 12th Avenue, Bear, and 4th Avenue. Our methodology for this site study included data collection, which consisted of a site visit to actually field measure through laser rangefinder heights of existing buildings along those streets, including fences, trees, light poles, and existing roof ridge heights of the existing residential buildings. And if we can get to, all right, so our first view here, so I'll jump into it. The first view here is from views number 1 and 2 are from residents on South 12th Street, particularly 312 South 12th Avenue, 12th Street, sorry, and 1200 4th Avenue. As you can see in the rendering here, I'll point to it with the laser flight. Doesn't work on screen. Okay. So, all right. So if you can see, if I point your attention to the screen there, view 1 taken from the particular point of interest there for view 1 was the rear of South 312 South Street. There, we're not going to get a. There is some points of visibility. However, there is an obstruction, as you can see in the graphic there, which is represented as dark. There's an existing tree there. The existing tree measured approximately between 25 and 30 feet. And then there's an existing fence there. So there is going to be a seasonal visibility during the winter months. You'll see the development will be seen. However, during the growing season, you'll have some visibility, which we're depicting in the graphic, the 2 view cones from the top of the fence to the bottom of the tree canopy and then above the tree canopy. Now, if we move to view number 2.
If we could, if I have a question right there. So what is the distance between the proposed building and the home?
The proposed development is 5 feet off the property. And then the 312 resident is 5 feet as well off the property line as well. So there's a 10 feet difference.
10 feet.
10 feet horizontal difference.
Okay. Are there, I'm imagining there's windows along the south side of the apartment building, correct?
Correct.
Yes, all right. So will those, my question is, will the homeowner who's there, do they have windows that's also facing them? And will they sort of feel as if there's a direct view to their home? Folks, please.
Believe it or not, there actually are no windows on the north side of that residential, the 312 South 12 South Street residence. For that reason, there are no existing windows that face north to the proposed development.
Okay.
So view number 2 is from across the street on 4th Avenue, right in front of 1200, resident number 1200. There we have an obstruction of 1201 4th Avenue residential single family, the residence there. And you would get a small line of sight above the roof ridge, as you can see in our graphic right there. So we'll move to, if there are no questions on this graphic, we can move to views 3 and view number 3.
Okay. No.
Okay, in this view, we are looking at we picked a location from resident number 301 Bear Place. There's a side access door there, and from our site visit, there is a side door there and a small window, which appears to be like a bathroom window. And then between that residence and the proposed development, you'll see there are some existing buffer trees that are existing there that consist of oak trees and Norway maple. They are at varying heights, around approximately 37 feet is what we measured in the field. And in reference, the proposed development is 4 feet higher at 41 feet. We again, for this view here, we found that there would be a visibility, a narrow cone of visibility from the bottom of the tree canopy to the top of the proposed fence. And just also as a reference, the applicant is proposing a line of evergreen screen trees on the south property line, south of the development, along the residential, the shared residential property line.
Evergreens. So they'll be masking year-round?
Evergreen screen, yeah, evergreen foliage that we proposed, arborvitae or some similar species.
So the apartment dwellers wouldn't really have a view out of their windows because the evergreens would be there? Is that
Day
what I'm
one, there
understanding?
would be some, depending on how it's planted, but yes, there would be a line of evergreen trees and depending on the heights of them. But the future growth, the mature growth the trees could provide, considering it's also south facing, they would be receiving sun throughout the year, it would be evergreen screened throughout the year.
Folks, we do need to ask you to be quiet so the stenographer can hear clearly. Thank you.
And one thing I would like to point out in this view is, so we have also the resident at 313 Bear Place. That's the roof ridge that the architect was referring to. It was measured in the field at 32 feet height above existing grade. So if there are no more questions on view 3, we'll move to views 4 and 5.
Okay.
Okay. So, views 4 and 5 take us to resident numbers 311 and 313 South 12th Street. We chose those residents there as, so friends, like in this view, I think it's still loaded, but we picked a location in front of their house from the sidewalk location, and those distances measured anywhere between 107 feet from the, 107 feet from 311 South 12th Street and 136 feet from 313 South 12th Street. There were no obstructions noted in this line of sight. This line of sight is actually missing. It's not fully loaded. There is an existing tree just north of the line of sight. However, we can't really count it as an obstruction. So there would be full visibility of this building from those residents, those areas.
Do you have the full rendering?
Yes,
on
I'll put it on there.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Can you close that window?
There is a wire that's going down. I can't close it. This wire is going down.
There was a-
Yeah, no, it's open a little bit. I already closed it, the max.
So I'll have to point your attention to the board there, the physical board that's standing there. But for reference, the resident at 311, the roof line is 19 feet, and for the resident at 313, the roof line measured at 24 feet above finished grade. Any questions from the board? Thank you.
At this time, I would like Mr. Lenahan to come out to explain his traffic and parking study.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Board of Trustees. My name is Patrick Lenahan. I'm the Director of Transportation Services at BHB's Hop office at 100 Motor Parkway. As part of our efforts on the project, we prepared a traffic and parking study, which was included in the application. And I'd like to quickly go over just a summary of that and answer any questions you may have. The traffic study, as all of our studies generally do, looked at the existing future conditions with and without our proposed redevelopment that we're considering tonight. We looked at the site access. We looked at future parking conditions. What is it going to look like? What is to be approved and built as proposed, and of course parking, which I know is a big concern in the area. The Long Island Railroad third track project has been mentioned a couple times, and I see Driving around, construction has already started to have an effect. Hopefully they finish it as soon as possible and things can get back to normal. If they're going to finish it quickly, the design build process that they chose, I think, is the appropriate one to do that with, because they certainly have incentives to finish it up, so hopefully they get out of your hair quickly. As part of the third track project and the elimination of, I think, 7 at-grade railroad crossings with surface streets, they are completely eliminating a couple, and one of them is the crossing at South 12th Street. That crossing will be essentially plucked out by the roots, and 12th Street will no longer cross the tracks. That will have an effect on traffic patterns in this immediate area, certainly. The several hundred vehicles an hour of through traffic that cross the tracks there no longer will. That traffic will go elsewhere. So one of the things we did in our traffic study was look at the Long Island Railroad's environmental impact statement and look at their future volumes and what effect the removal of that crossing would have. And I think they're still talking about completing in 2022. The crossing will probably be closed in 2021 as part of that process. There's work around the station area. So for our future build condition in the year 2021, to get through this process, hopefully, we assumed that crossing was closed. And we took volumes that, the railroad did a full traffic study when they did it, so we adopted their future volumes and superimposed our development on top of that, so we get an accurate picture of what things are going to look like. The site, as proposed, I think was mentioned, would have a single access point on Bear Place, an entry and an exit. The analysis of the future conditions at that driveway, traffic conditions being what they are, there'll be very low delays at that driveway. It was mentioned that the site of the redevelopment contains a number of buildings. There's an industrial building of about 10,000 square feet and change, one single-family home, and just over 2,000 square feet of masonry construction that, from some of the signing that was on the building several months back, appeared to be a deli at one point.
It was.
Just as a point of note, for our traffic study, when we looked at future conditions, we took no credit for the actual reoccupancy of that building. It could be reoccupied. We noted in the report what the traffic levels it might produce for the sizes of the buildings, but in the doing of our analysis, we basically went on a clean sheet of paper. We looked at the, being that we're right next to the railroad station, the most critical time periods in terms of capacity and impacts, or the commuter peaks in the morning and the PM. So we looked at those times, and what we found was the intersections that we studied, which included South 12th at 3rd, which becomes a T intersection rather than a 4-way, as it is now, and Bear Place down at 4th. What we found was very good levels of service will occur in that area, certainly once the railroad crossing is removed. And we add our traffic. When we add our traffic to that, we have very little impacts in terms of additional delays. The levels of service, if you're familiar with the letter grades, we found without us, or actually level of service A, when all that form of background traffic is removed, this area, aside from a lot of people parking and such, kind of gets dead-ended and cut off. So when we add our traffic to it, which is a modest amount, it doesn't have much of an impact. It stays at an A, and there's a second or two of additional delay, which the average motorist.
Can you repeat the last remark?
Excuse me, folks, can you just respect the process? It's very distracting to the board and to your neighbors when you speak over the expert. Everybody will get an opportunity to speak at some point. There's a process in place tonight, and it's also difficult for the reporter to get down what the expert is saying. So please respect the process, okay?
This is sinking. You're not gonna hear me at all.
Well, you really have to project into the microphone,
Tell you what.
because we have people in other rooms that are relying on that
Can I do that?
microphone. That'd be great.
How's this? Better?
That's better.
Okay, so when we looked at the level of service that the intersections in the area provide the motorists, as part of our study, like I said, there's a big change once that grade crossing is removed. All that cross traffic that used to be there evaporates to different avenues. We got very good levels of service at the study intersections. And when we added our moderate levels of traffic, nothing changed in any drastic way. It changed very little. A few seconds of delay, but you know, when we talk about letter grades, level of service, the intersections remain at level of service A. The development is a transit-oriented development. It's literally feet from the platform. And what we find with transit-oriented development, and it's really common sense, there is a significant drop in the trip generation of specifically residential components of uses.
Can you explain trip generation?
Sure. Every land use that you develop on a piece of property has the ability or the propensity, let's call it, to have traffic arrive at the site and then depart at the site. Residential, for instance, tends to have that traffic associated with commuting activity. Folks get up in the morning, over the course of several hours, they leave, they go to work, they come home in the evening. Retail doesn't do much at all in the morning, most of it, particular types do. On the weekend, it's more of a mixed bag. So when I talk about trip generation, as traffic engineers, when we're looking at the impact of a project, what we do is we look at conditions without us, and there's a certain volume on the road. We look at what our specific project is going to generate in our forecast, lay the two on top of each other and say, okay, what is this going to do? Is this going to upset the neighbors? Basically. And in this instance, and it's detailed in the report, because of the nature of the development, it doesn't have much of a tangible effect. Now, back to TOD, transit-oriented development, if this development were somewhere else, people would get up in the morning, they'd go to work in their cars. That's all, their only option. In this case, with the very good commuting opportunity of the train station, some of the folks who live here are going to use the train station instead of their personal car. And it depends on the size of the development and how close it is to the railroad station and what other options there are in terms of busing. You know, is it a big transit hub? But studies show that the reduction in trip generation for TODs rises up to about 50%, sometimes higher. So what we did here, we can't get any closer, but to be conservative, we took a 25% credit during the commuting hours. In other words, 3/4 of the people who are going to go to work will still go in their car. So we took a conservative credit, and we didn't apply anything to the retail component. So when we crunch the numbers, we're really looking at what I believe is a conservative, high side conservative estimate of what our impacts might be, if that makes sense. Okay. Now, the retail portion of the site, in talking about, we mentioned a bagel store and a coffee shop. Those types of uses are intended to specifically cater to the commuters that are already here, right? When I go to my Manhattan office, which I do a few times a month, I use the Ronkonkoma train station. There's a Dunkin' Donuts, a bagel store, a dry cleaner, which is a great idea at the train station, a stationery store, a pizza parlor, a little kitchenette, a taxi stand. And you know, all the times I've gone into the stationery store and the Dunkin' Donuts, everyone that's in that store in the morning is getting on the train. They're already there. So that trip already happened we're not adding another one, and that car is already parked somewhere in the lot. So that's gonna happen to a great extent. Here, in my study, I took no definitive credit for that. In other words, I generated traffic like I normally would for the retail portion, as if we weren't at the train station. So, again, conservative in our approach. Parking. We talk a lot about parking in the report. We have 71 apartments proposed, 3/4 of them are one bedroom. So the TOD nature of the development is also going to have an effect on the type of demographic who lives in the building. You know, I've done a lot of TOD in Mineola. I worked on Ronkonkoma Hub, which is building gangbusters now. And we go to the hearings, and a lot of folks come out. They want apartments. They're tired of mom's basement, and they want apartments near the railroad station, so they could, instead of them and their wife having 2 cars, they can have 1 car, and there's some free spirits who don't want to have any cars. So when we look at the parking projection for the project for the 71 apartments, there is published data for apartments. And then there's data that we at VHB have collected at other TODs. And the one that I like to use most, which actually comports pretty well with the published data, is the Avalon development in Rockville Center, because it was several hundred apartments. It was a good sample. And when we count that, we find it's further away from the train station than this is. It's a few blocks north. And we did some counts in Farmingdale as well. We find peak parking demand, first it occurs at night, when everybody has had the opportunity to come home, about, sometime after 9 o'clock. And what we found was just a little bit under 1.2 parked cars per apartment unit. Published data will tell you 1.21. Avalon came in, I think, at 1.18. And the important thing here, again, is to be conservative. The Avalon development had a much higher percentage of 2-bedroom units, but we applied that number here. Okay?
So we're at 1.2?
We project you're going to be probably less than 1.2.
But the amount of parking that we've provided, that you're proposing to provide, is a ratio of 1.2 or 1.0?
No, 1.0.
1.0.
Well, a little over 1.0 actually. 71 apartments, 76 spaces. But I'd like to, the owner wants to pigeonhole, reserve 1 space for apartment, which is, I guess, normal practice when you manage these things. And the other 5 spaces, I'd like to reserve for employees of the retail. So we have the parking component for the apartments. We have the parking component for the retail. Again, the retail tenants are very much going to cater to the commuters that are living there. But there are also parking demand published data that we've used on Long Island many times for retail uses. So what we do is a shared parking analysis that accounts for the fact that the apartments and the retail generate their peak parking demand at different times of the day. If you look in this parking garage for the apartments at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, most of those cars aren't going to be there. Whereas, the retail might peak at 2 in the afternoon, depending on what you have. But we have the 71 reserved spaces. So the retail parking demand would be accommodated mostly on the adjacent street of South 12th and Bear. The 1.2, when we apply it to the apartments, we're going to get the peak, combined peak demand for this development is expected to occur about 9 o'clock in the evening on a weekday. That's when, 7 o'clock. That's when enough apartment dwellers are home, and the retail hasn't yet tailed off. If it was regular retail, it's not. If we have a bagel store, the bagel store probably closed in the afternoon. So that puts us total demand about 92, and we had 76. So we're looking to accommodate 16 vehicles. Now, looking in the immediate vicinity of the site, and the village near the train station is very interesting. It's broken up into a lot of parking restrictions, and it's obvious why they're there. You know, you've got 1 and 2 hour parking, you've got long-term voucher parking, you've got a couple other things going on. But the 1 to 2 hour parking, which could be used by folks who happen to visit the retail that aren't already at the train station, exists with an exception now, which I'll talk about, on either side of where the building's going to be.
Either side?
The west side on South 12th,
Okay.
and the east side on Pear. And that would almost, and when we surveyed, there was really nobody parking there.
Those are metered spots?
They were. That's what I want to get to. The ones on South 12th were metered spots. So what I do often, you know, we did this observation a couple of months ago. Prior to today's hearing, I went by the site again, because you always want to see if anything changed. And it's the village, I think, the village, put in restricted voucher parking on the west side, on the east side of South 12th, what used to formerly be 1 to 2 hour parking with the meters.
Right.
Now, my hope is that that is a temporary condition during the construction, and when for Covert Avenue construction kind of minimizes itself over there, that those spaces will become back available. Because with the, you know, with the potential for a little bit of residential parking that doesn't fit in the garage, and the retail parking,
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
we could almost accommodate all of it right around the perimeter of the building, which is what we're looking to do, because we want to minimize our impacts on the neighborhood. So if
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
I'd be interested to find, you know, you may not know the answer to that question. I can call the highway department or whoever's in charge of those signs and figure that out. Now, if for some reason they're permanent, there is, you know, as you head west, at least 40 some odd spaces of those 1 to 2 hour parking that are open all day. And the 1 and 2 hour restriction sunsets at 6 o'clock.
West on 3rd Avenue?
To the west, in the north-south commercial portions, as you approach the railroad tracks. And a little bit along, there's some on the north side of 4th Avenue. Now, we don't think we need nearly that much, but I came here today to tell you that we can park right around our building,
Right.
which is why I'm interested in whether that.
We don't know if that's
restriction-
permanent, of course, with the 3rd track work and the elimination of a lot of parking spaces for commuters. We've had to capture more voucher parking because it's been quite problematic, but it's a very dynamic situation, and we're adjusting to the conditions that we're faced with. So we don't know at this point if that's going to be a permanent situation or not. Eventually, we'll probably migrate to muni meters and replace the voucher parking system. So it really remains to be seen. It's in flux.
The muni meters would help out the whole area, I think, because they would sunset themselves. You know, you wouldn't purchase the voucher parking runs till 8 o'clock. So if somebody gets off the train at 4:15, nobody can use that spot until after 8 o'clock. The muni meter, if the person using it was intelligent, the way they fed the meter, would free up a lot of spaces. You know, after the commuters go.
Right. So your estimation, I'm sorry, your estimate is how many overflow from the residential demand?
Well, our residential demand peaks at about 84. That's in the middle of the night, and we're gonna, and again, we could come in below 1.2 because we have a low number of one-bedroom apartments. I'm using 1.2 as a conservative estimate. So we're gonna park 71 in the structure below the building.
So we've got a deficit of 13
Yeah.
spots. And as you said, I'm sorry, folks, please. The retail allotment is 5 spots for employees, but no spots for customers.
Correct, but those customers would more than likely, you know, certainly most of them will come from the commuters at the train station. Some of that retail is going to close before the residential peaks. You know, certainly if it's a bagel store, they close pretty early.
Yeah. So, with regard to the traffic, if I could get back to that, this study was, did it take into consideration the commuter lot right across the street and the peak activity, particularly in the morning,
Yes.
when people are coming to the commuter lot to catch the train?
Yeah, what we looked at was the railroad's adjusted counts for when the station, when that crossing is removed, that they projected out to 2022. So it was counted in the morning, 6 to 9, I believe it was. I can confirm that.
Okay.
To capture, you know, as the commuters fill up. You know, I'm sure some of them are there before that.
And did the traffic study consider that the access routes to the property, 4th Avenue, 5th Avenue?
Yes.
Bear Place and so forth? Okay.
You know, there's a little bit of science involved, and there's a little bit of thought involved in, okay, if we drop these people here, how are they gonna leave? How are they gonna get back? And what you do is you look at what everyone else is doing. You know, Culver Avenue is gonna be there, 12th is not gonna go there.
Was the assumption made that the residents in the apartments would have access to the commuter lot?
No. No, the 72-hour commuter lot, no.
Question? Okay.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentation, so if you want to hear from the public or if you have any additional questions from us.
Okay, I'll turn it over to the board in a moment, but I did have a question on the environmental impact statement. It mentioned that there was a potential contamination history there at the site, and it cited a spills incident database with the DEC, 3 DEC numbers. Can anyone elaborate on that?
So all of those were closed out, so the site was remediated and cleaned.
Okay.
Oh, it could be the roads around. Gail Pesner was just explaining that it could be the roads around the site, it may not be specifically the site itself, but they are all closed out.
Okay, because one of the businesses on the site was a dry cleaner.
Right.
Okay. So we heard a lot about the number of apartments and their size. Can we speak to what the projected rent is going to be at these apartments?
For 1 bedroom, 2,800 to 3,000, and for 2 bedroom, 3,800 to 4,000.
Okay. Is it? I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, please. Now, are there any sort of economic studies or real estate studies that says that these are reasonable rents that you can charge? And
I know that from the Mineola projects that I've worked on, that they're comparable.
okay.
Are there any vacancies?
No vacancies. They're pretty much, I mean, I know the Allure is pretty much filled up. And I know Valazarian Properties, the last time I spoke to him, he said it was almost at capacity. My client just gave me a list of other locations with transit-oriented developments. The median for one bedroom does range. The one in Mineola for one bedroom was $2,995. The two bedroom was $3,895, so comparable. Great Neck Avalon, one bedroom, $3,695. Two bedroom, $4,570. And then Farmingdale, Cornerstone, for one bedroom, $2,495. Two bedroom, I'm sorry, the one bedroom was $2,495. The two bedroom was $3,295. So the one in Farmingdale was a little lower in price, but the one in Mineola is comparable to what we're doing.
Does this, is this a sustainable rent in your estimation, or is this a peak? Or where are we?
I mean, there is a demand for rental. There's a demand, I mean, there's a shortage of rental housing. That's why everybody's doing this now.
I appreciate that. And while it may be a good market now, this is a structure that would be essentially a permanent structure. I guess my concern is what happens if the market goes down, and so do rents.
I mean, I guess they would have to adjust accordingly, but at this time, the rates are, you know, what they are. Like I said, in Mineola, there's no vacancies, and they're getting that price.
Are there any industry forecasts of the immediate area that would help us project what the I guess what the business case is for the property in terms of, you know, sustainable rent, a sustainable business? Of course, the last thing we want is a slum. Can't think of another way to put it. But if the rental market becomes depressed, what assurances does the village have that we're not going to have a depressed situation here?
Right. Well, there are never any guarantees, as you know, but what we're saying now is that there's a very high demand for this type of housing. There isn't enough rental units for this demographic, for young adults who are professionals who maybe want to work in the city, who don't want to buy a single-family home, the empty nesters who don't want a home, maybe fly up and down from Florida. You know, so the demand is very high. You read about it every day in the newspapers. Vision Long Island talks about it every day. They're having a conference next month. They're going to be talking about it again. So the demand is there, and the idea is that we're satisfying the demand now, and hopefully.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, please be quiet. We'll have an opportunity to speak.
And like you said, this is the first development in your downtown proposed area. So hopefully you'll create a different character and a different environment in this area.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you cannot control yourself, then leave the room. But you do need to exercise self-control. We're all adults here. We have a process. We need to respect the process.
I could give you these comparisons if you'd
Okay.
like.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Enter that into the record.
Yes, this is applicant's exhibit B.
Right. And you mentioned before that there would need to be, pursuant to village law, which is sort of following state law, that there has to be a set aside of 10% for affordable workforce housing?
That's correct, and we will comply with that.
And can you tell us what that relates to? So if a one-bedroom apartment is 2,880, and two-bedroom is 3,800. What does that relate to in terms of?
So it is based on median income, but we have not figured out that number yet. But we will provide that information to you.
Okay.
We usually work with a company, the Long Island Housing Partnership, Long Island Housing Partnership, and so they will assist us with that whole process.
Okay.
Just can you speak to roughly the reduced rental? How much of a reduction would it be typically? 10%, 20%, 30%?
I think it's approximately 20%.
20%.
But it's really based on 80% of the median income in Nassau County. We have to figure out that number. I don't know.
Just again, thinking about the projection of the market, since it is a transit-oriented development project, with the third track, 10 more trains a day stopping at New Hyde Park, East Side access open 28 minutes to Grand Central. What does that, in your view, portend for the project and to be able to continue to sustain rents in the area that you're describing today?
I think that's the main attraction. You know, you have the railroad there for people who want to go into the city. You don't need a car. You jump on the train, it's right in front of your home. I mean, how much more convenient and easy can it get? I mean, that's the ideal situation for a transit-oriented development. This is a prime site.
What are the risks? The risks in that, as I mentioned before, that the market will tank, will have, to stay above water, perhaps have to get federal subsidies to occupy the building. What would you say is the probability of such an event?
Very low. I don't see that happening here.
Can, perhaps later on, are there any experts that can weigh in on that for us that we can enter into the record?
Yes, we will. We're going to be coming back before this board,
Yeah.
so we will present evidence with respect to that.
I appreciate that, because the board wants to deal in facts and data, and really not conjecture and hope. So, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, I'd like to then open up questions and concerns from the audience. Now, the way we'll do this again, we'll do this very controlled and polite and respectful fashion. So many people have submitted cards to us. It's now about 9:14. We have about 46 minutes that we can go here, and then of course we will have another public hearing. We will have opportunities to enter comments, concerns, questions into the public record in a written format. So please don't be upset if you're not able to express yourself tonight. We'll try to get through as many people as we can. We will try to, I will ask that speakers be limited to 2 minutes each, because we have a lot of people here, and we might find that some of your questions are asked by speakers that went before you. So in that case, if you'd like to defer, then go ahead. I'm sorry? Yeah. Yeah. Just a moment, please.
I was just going to ask if anybody's holding one, if we could pass them up.
Yes, the village clerk and the village staff will collect cards if there are any more cards to be collected and you wish to speak. So at first, let me ask that a councilman from the town of Hempstead come up. And please present your name.
Thank you, Mayor Monorail and New Hyde Park trustees, for Tom Muscarella, for allowing me the opportunity to address the board this evening. My name is Muscarella, Tom Muscarella. I am the Hempstead Town Councilman for the 2nd District, which includes the incorporated village of New Hyde Park. I have brought with me a letter to the board which I would like to submit to the clerk for inclusion in the official record of tonight's hearing on the special permit application associated with the proposal to develop a 4-story, 71-unit at 300 South 12th Street in New Hyde Park. I would also like to take a minute to read the letter for the benefit of the board and the members of the community who are in attendance this evening.
So as long as you stay within the time limit, for consideration for everyone else.
I'll give you 2 minutes.
Thank you. Dear Mayor and trustees, the suburban character of New Hyde Park is something that draws families to settle in this community, raise their families here, and partake in community services. Guarding against the impact of unsustainable development that threatens our quality of life is important to me as Town of Hempstead Councilman. Accordingly, I want to share with you my opposition to the special permit application associated with the proposal to develop a 4-story, 71-unit complex at 312th Street in New Hyde Park. First and foremost, the proposal to shoehorn this apartment complex amongst a neighborhood of lovely single-family homes runs counter to the character of this neighborhood. Secondly, anyone who lives or works in this area is aware of the serious traffic congestion, lack of parking that already plague this community. What's more, the number of motor vehicles that will come with the 71 housing units will substantially increase noise and air pollution. Additionally, the ability of the infrastructure, including the sewer system, the fresh water supply, need to be carefully considered. Questions of fire service and the ability of the local school system to support the influx of additional students demand serious attention from the New York Park Village Board of Trustees as the proposal is considered. As a homeowner in the neighboring community and town councilman, the concerns surrounding the development give me serious pause. Indeed, I do not believe that a 4-story apartment complex with 71 apartment units is sustainable. Further, I do not think that the planned housing project fits in the character of this local neighborhood. Coupled with the concerns with all the serious infrastructure, environmental, and other impacts outlined above, I think you will agree that this proposal does not merit your consideration. Please consider this one last thing. A haunting thought keeps running through my mind as I envision the magnitude of the increased traffic that will come with this project. Significantly, I shudder at the thought of young children riding their bikes, playing ball, and socializing on the same residential streets where dozens and upon dozens of newly added cars will race to and from work each and every day. I think that we all share this concern. Thank you for giving me your attention along with the serious concerns of the New Hyde Park neighbors.
Thank you. Superintendent Morrison, would you like to make a comment?
Thank you very much.
My name is Marcy Finkelstein. Good evening. My name is Marcy Finkelstein, and I'm a partner at the law firm of Lemon Barnosky. Our office is located at 534 Broad Hollow Road, Melville. We represent the new Hyde Park Garden City Park School District, and we're here tonight on the district's behalf. The Superintendent of Schools and the Board of Education have only recently learned about the application before you tonight. Accordingly, the district does not, as of yet, have a position on the application. We are in the process of reviewing and reviewing information on the project, and expect to meet with the Board of Education in the near future to discuss the same. I would like to read into the record the letter I sent to the Board of Trustees on April 23rd, 2019.
Talking to the mic.
So April 23rd, 2019, we wrote this letter. Dear Mayor of Montreal and members of the Village Board, we are the attorneys for the new Hyde Park Garden City Park Union Free School District. As you know, the superintendent and the Board of Education are concerned about the possible impacts of the project upon the school district. We understand a public hearing on the project is scheduled for Tuesday, April 30th, 2019. We are in the process of gathering information on the application, and we request additional time to study and comment. We ask that the village board refrain from determining the application of the developer until the impacts of the project upon the school district are fully and carefully examined and resolved.
I have the names of the next three speakers I'll call so they have the opportunity to come forward. Lillian Rivera. Okay, I'm sorry. John Burnell, 318 South 11th Street. Trish Latara, 301 Bear Place. And Louis Epstein, 301 Bear Place. Same application. If you would come up to the microphone. Doesn't matter. What's your name, Trish?
Hi, for the record, I feel your pain. I'm an owner at 301 Bear Place, directly behind the proposed project. My question to you, Mr. Mayor, is you are the mayor for our village. You were voted in to look after our interests, and we want to know who's benefiting from this. Who's benefiting? Because it's not us at all. I want to try. That's how it's like. Are you going to answer who's benefiting? That's the question.
That's what the hearing is to determine.
Okay.
If the application is in sync with our concept of what's best for the community. And we are collecting all the facts to make that decision. But I cannot at this point, or nor can anybody on the board, make a decision before the whole hearing is closed. But the interests of the village and its suburban character is paramount in our concern. So, next. State your name and address.
Laura Epstein, also 301 Bear Place. If I can have my card as well.
Okay.
Okay, I want to, did you think about the impact to the homes right next to this project? This project has no benefit to the village. There will be 300 people in this very small space. So I moved from Queens to come to live in New Hyde Park about 18 months ago. If I wanted an apartment building, I would have stayed in Queens. So I really want you guys. One-family homes in this neighborhood. And back to the rents that they're going to charge in this apartment, are you telling me when she mentioned that this is for the student to get out of his basement, out of his parents' basement for $2,800 a month? Really? Are you kidding me? $3,800 a month? That is insane. That is not a reasonable rent, and that's not who we're catering to. I don't know exactly who's going to fill up these apartments for that dollar amount, but if they had that kind of money, they would buy a house.
So we have Marcy Finkelstein.
Oh, me by myself.
Okay, you did. Okay, sorry. So we have Selena Vitalo, 1511 Lincoln Avenue. Milan and Annabelle Kolar, 511 South 13th Street. Renee and Thomas Schuler, 527 11th Avenue. Are any of those? They might be in the other room, in which case they will be making their way down here. So, okay. In the meantime, we'll push forward. So we have Mary Domitrovic, 6411 South 11th Street. Mr. and Mrs. John Conway, 624 South 11th Street. Karen and Frank Donatelli, 26 South 1st Street. Okay. Donald Petraro, 116 6th Avenue. Nicole and Caesar Trellis, 1000 Premier Boulevard.
Can I make a recommendation?
Monica Nadaski, I believe Monica is here.
We end now and begin fresh with citizen input in another venue. Obviously, it's not fair to the people that you're calling, and everyone deserves to have their voice heard.
We are trying to accommodate the people who have asked to speak. Now, folks are coming in who have been. Now, please be quiet. If we're going to have any kind of conversation here, we're going to have order. All right. So, if you have, sir, if you tell us your name and address. Yes, in the microphone. What's your name?
It's very easy. They're all against it. We can end it right now. What's there to talk about? Too much traffic, too much congestion in the schools, too many. That's it. I was going to say the same thing. I've been here.
Yes, hello, Caesar Trellis, 1000 Premier Boulevard. The developers described developing part of the project to have retail, restaurant, bars. That kind of goes against the whole makeup of our neighborhood. Why would we want that type of commercial property in our backyard? It makes absolutely no sense to increase the traffic and to have that type of makeup in our neighborhood when we're trying to raise our kids. They want bars, they can go to Jericho Turnpike, not in the village. I just want to know why would you want to do that?
Well, again, it's in context of the transit-oriented development to change a blighted industrial zone into a commercial and retail ban.
What happens to Jericho?
Go ahead.
There's many other things that you can do besides putting a bar that sets bad examples for our children. I mean, I'm sure, there's minds that, that can think about these projects. I don't think bars and restaurants are that. I don't think, putting, young residents like the previous spoker said, hey, that they want to pay $3,000 rents. Buy a home in our community. Raise a family in a home. Why rent?
I don't think they said anything about a bar.
They did say bars and restaurants. They led with it. Someone led with a microbrewery. That was the thing.
That was the mayor.
Thank you for taking my question.
Is there anyone else whose name I called who's here? Yes. Monica?
happens to all the businesses under?
Good evening, I had a couple of questions. Monica Nadesky, 1105 Fifth Avenue, Hyde Park. One of the statements by the applicant had mentioned something about payment to the village. Is that in lieu of taxes? So this won't be taxed at all?
No, it's not in lieu of taxes. It is in lieu of some of the essentially variances that they would be afforded in order to build the structure in terms of height, in terms of parking, and so forth. So to balance that, applicants under this law have the opportunity to present to the village payment for community benefit funds, which would go to public spaces like parks, roadways, these sort of things.
Because in the initial application, they were proposing $2,000 per unit, and that dramatically increased to $5,000 right after the overlay district was approved. I'm just wondering why the difference.
No, it wasn't after the overlay district. The overlay district, it was still in the same context of the conversation. But the board felt that $2,000 per unit was not adequate to compensate us for the sacrifices that the board would have to make to consider the project.
Okay, and the other question that I had to do with the roof plan. In the drawings that were put up, there were 6 retail stores that were listed on that. 2 of them were with exhaust fans, so we're talking about restaurants that are going to be up there?
That's a good question. I don't know at this point.
Okay, and the fact that you have that open air seating and whatnot, now you have light pollution. If they are in fact restaurants, now you have smells, you have noise pollution. I'm going to kind of presume that, you know, that open air space is going to have some kind of music and whatnot, and now you have residential homes that are right there. I mean, it's bad enough that we have to listen to the tavern on a summer night. Now this is just a couple of blocks away.
I will say what I read in the environmental impact assessment was that all the lighting would be contained within the property, and I expect that to be for the rooftop that's proposed as well, if it's accepted. And of course, all the village noise ordinances would apply as well.
Seems to be a problem with the tavern, though. You mentioned that there would be additional meetings. When will those meetings take place?
We haven't set them yet.
When would we know?
When we set them and advertise them, but we've got a bit of coordination to do yet.
No robocall went out that I'm aware of.
And obviously it wasn't necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else?
Yes.
Anyone else that I have called?
Yes. Hi, my name is Donald Patero, residing at 1116 6th Avenue in Hyde Park. In 2003, I had applied for a variance for my home. The board scrutinized every piece of information that I put forward, including the color of my shutters, the color of my siding. I was told I wanted red shutters. I was told there were too many red shutters in Hyde Park. We needed to keep in line with the character of the village. And that is why I moved to the village. I liked the character when I moved here, and I want to maintain that character here. A 4-story apartment building consisting of stores and 71 apartments is out of character for New Hyde Park. I've been here for 25 years, and the scrutiny that I went under for things like shutters and siding, I hope that the board will go through the same type of scrutiny with this proposal.
Eric Alexander.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you're going to get to the card. With all due respect, I'm going to be living right across the building, and I have one question.
All right. If you hold that question.
She can take my time for me. I don't live in the village.
Yeah, not,
Okay, very well. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you.
My
My name is Madhvi Nijar. My husband and I moved here in 2001.
Please speak into the mic and address the
We
board.
live on 317 South 12th Street. My last name Nijar, Nijjar. We're going to be right across where the house is. One of our close friends that left, that is right next to that only house on that block, next to the blue house that he just left. Two things I want to say. In 2002, my dad wanted to buy the house next to me, which is the only two-family house left in that block. And they said if you buy that house and reconstruct it, it will become one-family house. So the village didn't allow that, but now all of a sudden, this many years later, we're going to do this. The second question I have is for the people who are proposing this. Do you have a commercial building on the corner of your house?
Can the applicant respond to that question, please?
Whether I have an apartment?
No, I think the question was pointed at Mr. Mazzini, the owner.
There's a chair available over there.
No, I
Mr. Giussini does not.
Please.
He does not live next to a transit-oriented development.
Thank you.
So why should we?
Mr. Eric Alexander.
Over to you. Mr. Mayor, I do not live here. I live in Northport. I've been asked by a member of New Hyde Park to come here tonight. I'm not going to say who it is, so they're not attacked on Facebook. My organization, Vision Long Island, does support transit-oriented development when planned properly in downtowns. We've seen it work, and I live in a downtown, actually over a store in an apartment building, so I can practice what I preach. It's not for everyone. When you do these types of things, generally it's good when it's planned from the public, from the bottom up. Generally it's also good when we answer all the questions and take the time to get into the details of all these things. And sometimes a format like this doesn't get us there because we can't hear and maybe folks are yelling at each other. But some initial comments, and my time's going to run out real quick, and we'll put the rest in writing. The parking numbers should probably be a little up. Went from what we've seen around the island and the 40 different downtowns that have approved projects like this to a 1.2. The school district, their numbers are probably a little higher. On average, they're 3 per 100 units. In the projects that are up there, 13,000 units of transit-oriented development approved on Long Island. About 8,000 are physically built right now. We've done a study looking at Rockville Center, Great Neck, Huntington, and Farmingdale, and again, 3 per 100, so it's not a huge school district impact. Probably almost out of time. So the economic benefits are clearly on the tax side. These projects are more tax positive, even with the 11% drop on the pilots. Property values typically increase in downtown Farmingdale. We've seen a 7.5% increase per year since they have implemented their 300 units in their downtown area. Benefits to small business base. Now, the other piece though is the height. You've got an aggressive application that doesn't taper down to the local neighbors, and that's something you've got to address. It's typically been addressed well in other communities, and I'll end with this. We don't know this developer, we've not met this developer, we know a couple of the firms that do this, but you know, there has to be a relationship with their neighbors to make this work, and I think that that type of work should happen, and I hope it does moving forward. But I think overall there's benefits in what you're trying to do, but it needs to be planned with the public. Lastly, I'll just say, if anybody wants to tour a transit-oriented development project in communities that have embraced these types of projects, we do Saturday tours in different downtowns. We'd be glad to take anybody. My name's Eric Alexander, Vision Long Island. You can find me on Facebook, just don't yell. Thank you.
So we have Patricia Keating, 1109 Fifth Avenue.
Judy, I have lunch with her.
Peter Aldridge, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, 20 South 11th Street. And William O'Neill, 342 Covert Avenue. Ms. Keating?
Yes, Patricia Keating, 1109 Fifth Avenue. I understand the apartment project. My question is more of the overall project. I think you called it Plaza Station?
Station Plaza.
Station Plaza. I was here a week or so ago, a little familiar, from when we talked about not allowing or changing the code for the taxis and the commercial. And we talked about suburban environment and why we didn't want that traffic or that overnight parking. I don't understand why this is not in question from a suburban perspective, because a 4-story apartment building to me resonates to my living in the city that I did for 11 years and why I came back to Long Island to be in suburbia. So I don't understand your judgment on potentially not only the apartment building, but also what you're talking about for around the revitalization of the area. It does seem a bit cityfied to me, or urban to me, considering most of the folks here, it seems, moved here to get away from that. We have a main street. Let's focus on that if that's the case. Questioning the thought process on urban versus suburban. And also, what happens to the bagel store that's already across on the track? Where does this business go? What are we doing to the current businesses that are here when we bring this competition in, if that's the case? Also, I believe we changed the zoning rules for this already. So that implies to me, yeah. Because 4-story, do you see anything 4-story here in Hyde Park?
They're supposed to vote on that, I didn't think they did it.
So that's my other question also is, when did we change it? Why did we change it? Why wasn't it communicated? And anything above the 2 stories that we've had for the 50 years I've been around in this area, you know, we kept it to a certain level because we didn't want the urban perspective, and now you're throwing that into the mix. So I'm just curious why we're looking to change that, and when we changed it, and how we changed it, and why we didn't communicate it better.
What we changed, there's a... Found it. So we had some information here about when the overlay district was passed, but I don't have the exact date. But it was done so after a public hearing and advertising, and we had a public hearing in this room to encourage to encourage transit-oriented development, to encourage a vibrant downtown community center that we have lacked, a walkable downtown, which we weren't able to do on Jericho Turnpike. And what happens in these transit-oriented developments is that retail develops and it grows, and in this case we anticipate it will grow to Jericho Turnpike, and the stores on Jericho Turnpike will flourish more than they do today because of increased traffic and increased commerce that starts down at the railroad station.
But don't we have a hard time filling the retail space on Jericho Turnpike? And some of that is because of parking, potentially. So now you're going to bring it further into a residential area. What happens to the parking there?
Right, so, and again, for transit-oriented development, the parking is not such a strain. But as part of an overall planning effort, because we will engage a planning firm as well to take a look at this, to recommend and look at perhaps acquisition of property for additional parking.
Okay, just a few more.
Oh,
sorry. If anyone remembers the whistle stop, there's a restaurant bar that was not quite beneficial to the neighborhood. Look it up.
Joanne Razak, Diane Schaefer, and Eugene Bedrick. Sorry?
My name is Peter Altrecci.
Peter Altrecci, well, Peter...
South 11th Street.
I'm sorry, I must have mispronounced it, but the name I mentioned was Joanne. Okay, thank you very much.
Correct?
We're correct, we're good, thank you.
Okay,
20 South 11th Street.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello, Hyde Park.
Please address the board.
My name is Peter Altrecci. I live at 20 South Atlantic Street in Hyde Park, just on the other side of the tracks from this proposed project. I have noticed a lot of the people, they've talked about the character of the village. And that's the main reason that a lot of us live in this village. And then we pay this extra village tax to live here, to enjoy this quality of life. I used to live in Queens. It became a zoo. It was overcrowded. Okay, the quality of life went down. And so, you know, I have a family and grandkids, and this is the reason I moved here, even though I'm paying a lot more taxes here than I was in the city. Now, after living here 18 years, you know, it saddens me to see the thought that there could be this kind of a commercial place with a 4-story building, you know, that's going to impact as far as our sewer system, our water system, the pollution that's going to create, the danger to our community, our kids in the street, because all this traffic, you're going to have a lot of traffic going back and forth. There's no way around it. You have all these homes with all the side streets. I mean, they address it with the fact that they have this parking space, but that's going to take up a lot of parking space.
You got 30 seconds, sir.
Okay. So, another thing, their apartment renters, they're not going to have the sense of community that really the homeowners have. You know, they're not going to be concerned about the streets, about the dirt, the noise level. We are concerned about the business homes. If the community goes down, the quality of life goes down, they could just move. We as homeowners, we don't have that option. Okay, we want this place to stay decent and nice. I like to see businesses here, but this is not the type of business that is required in New Hyde Park. It's going to decrease the value of our homes. Although they say that's not the case, it will. In the immediate area, I wouldn't want to buy a home with a 4-story building and 71 apartments in it, and all the traffic that goes with it. Not to mention all the family and friends that are going to come and visit. That's additional traffic. So,
Versace?
I want to defer my, I'm sorry. I'd like to defer my time to Diane Bentavega to speak.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's okay.
Hi.
Hi.
In a letter that you wrote to
Diane, so your name and address?
Diane Bentavega, 494 South 14th Street. In a letter that you wrote to us in August of 2017, you mentioned that when you began collaborating with the MTA and the governor's office, that there were other projects in the wings that were unrelated to the third track project. And one of those things was an additional $5 million given to the village for a retail district, and another $5 million in state grants given to the village the option of applying for them for this transit-oriented housing. So was that part of the memorandum of understanding between the village, the governor, and the MTA?
That was related to it, yes.
Why didn't we know that?
We did know that.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Ask them if they knew it. No.
Nobody knew.
Okay.
Okay? Then a law was passed. In 2018, you passed the overlay law. And then all of a sudden, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, it was amended. A new provision was adopted as a law on April 1st of this year. And it had to do with clarifying the boundaries of the district. Was that to benefit this applicant?
It was, yes.
Why did you do that?
Because the applicant's property also covered what is covered in a parking district. And although it was in the boundaries of the industrial district, which was the intent of the overlay district, there was I guess a clarification that needed to be made because of this parking district.
Now, you
And I
see,
will let the attorney, who can elaborate on this much better than I can, explain it.
When the law was first enacted, the boundaries of this overlay district included what was ultimately amended for clarification purposes. However, at the time the law was amended, the board was not aware of the fact that that portion that was then clarified was called something other than the industrial zone. It's actually called the parking zone, but it was within the boundaries of the initial enacted law. It just had to be clarified in a subsequent law to identify that zone. But it was,
so it was done in response to this application?
No, because it was...
He just said it was. He just said he was.
Okay. The initial boundaries included that property, it was just not labeled correctly, so it had to be clarified.
So he got some special treatment?
No, he did not.
No, it's not special.
He clarified the law.
Absolutely not.
Yes, it is.
So we're wasting our time in this area, right?
Now it's clear. Thank you, Diane. Now it's clear. We understand it. Was there ever a legal notice about the overlay law, the overlay district law, and was there ever a public hearing about it?
There were 3 public hearings.
When?
Could it say it pertaining to what, so we would understand what it was about? Of 2018.
Never explained to the public.
How come no one knew about it? Where are these printed? Where are these printed?
You said no, let's
Legal notice.
Where? Where? Are they the size of this in the local paper?
It's the same,
Well, then,
it's the same notices that go in for every other local law.
This is a transformative change that you are recommending to this village. Transformative. A letter should have been written, not only to every member of the South Side, but every member of this village, because the North Side is just as angry as the South Side. This is transformative. And it was woefully unacceptable that the majority of these people here, people yelling outside just to have their voices heard, this whole thing could have been avoided. Yeah! The whole thing could have been avoided if you were transparent and inclusive. But you weren't. And I'm disappointed. I know all of you. You're great people and you work very hard at what you do. I can attest to that. I had a family member who did what they did. And it's a 24/7 job. And they work damn hard at doing it. But you missed the boat on this one.
Yeah.
And we're very upset. Thanks.
Thank you. Are you done? Was you done? Let's look at this. It's done in Schaefer. I was deferring to her. She's done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jeannie Zhang, 1623 Lowell Avenue. And Zenga Zing, 94 Dykeman Avenue. Meng Wang, 801 6th Avenue. Can I call your name,
Well,
ma'am?
I'm Beatrice. I'm Beatrice, Eugenie Beatrice. I think you called it earlier. I was in
If
the
I
other
called your
building.
name, please come up.
Yeah. First of all, I'm not against the idea.
If you could
Oh, yes,
just
my
state your name and address.
My name is Eugenie Beatrice. I'm living at
The
30
mic.
Miller's Lane.
If you just speak into the microphone.
Oh, yes, Eugenie Beatrice, and I'm living at 30 Miller's Lane. Sorry. I'm not per se against the idea of that general development, and I actually rather like some of the pictures, but I thought it was going to be more like 2 and 3 families, you know, in a building. But that's not my main concern here. It is what other people have been talking about. I'm a college professor, so I constantly have to communicate with students. You really need a much more modern way of communicating. When I tried to find out about this, I'm looking all over the place on the web. I'm used to doing that, and I can't find things. About a month or so ago, these pictures came up showing this whole thing for several blocks, and then it disappears.
Yeah.
And then you look again and you can't find it. I get constantly things in the mail talking about, for instance, traffic problems and garbage. But as they said, nothing about probably the most major thing anybody's been proposing in years in this place. I think you need to develop a much more interactive website. That might also take a little pressure off and you get a lot of feedback earlier and you know what's going on. That's my
We have Hui Wang, 801 6th Avenue. Okay.
This is Chi Wang, 816 Avenue. So I moved here 2 years ago. I was seeking for living Queens, and then I found that it's too crowded there. But now, with like the 71 apartment here, I don't see like the difference with living in Queens and here. And also as a parent, I don't think it's only create 3 to 7 kids to the school. I don't believe that. It will be 71 campus and 2 bedrooms. So, and also about the trains. I take the train commute every day, and I noticed that within 2 years, it's already increased numbers of passengers. And I don't think that's adding 71 families will do the benefit to the commuters. And I believe that most of the people choose to live here, work in the city, and they'll probably take the train. And are they having any like contract with MTA that to increase cars for the trains? I don't think so, right? That's
We have Michael Beaucamp, 620 South 12th Street. Ziling Zhang, 111 South 8th Street. Mai DiMattina, 594 6th Avenue. Hale Ella, 30 Miller's Lane. Mickey Song, 99 Maple Drive. Okay.
Mike Roach here.
Go ahead. Hey, if you please just speak into the mic so the...
Michael Beauchamp, 620 South 12th Street. I'll just go quickly. The traffic, you're going to have 71 families sort of landlocked now, especially if you're closing the South 12th Street crossing. How are they going to get to the north side? You're already going to have so much traffic coming up and down New Hyde Park Road already because of the third rail. So now you're going to have 71 families trapped, you know, trying to get up to Jericho. Where are they going to go? They're going to go to New Hyde Park Road or way over to Covert, either way. Second point is, what about fire, ambulance for them? Are you going to make that temporary lot in the park permanent? Is that going to be a permanent structure? Because you're going to need it. Do you know, is that under consideration? Is that
the firehouse yet? Yeah, well, the firehouse on South 12th Street is temporary. That's why it was set up there for the closure of Covert.
But if you're adding 71 new family units in there, you're going to need something there more permanent, I believe.
Well, I actually being a fireman, that building will be more fire safe than 9% of the house in North Park.
Well, you know, you also have ambulance too. People get sick. So, and I don't know if they understand there's no overnight parking in this town. So those extra 13, 14 cars that they just think can magically appear on the streets in front of everybody's houses can't really do that. Is that a consideration to, you know, undo the overnight parking for those people?
No, we have no plans to relax the parking code.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And so we have time for one more question tonight.
My name is Mickey Song. I live in 99 Maple Drive West. I'm also the president of the Chinese Association. I represent more than 400 members. We oppose this project. So we have facts from the news days, the data from the school. You can see each of the school students in public school costs more than $20,000 per student in Long Island. So we you know, I heard they are trying to attract those young couples. You cannot prevent them have children. So when these children, come to school, that comes like more than $1 million or $15 million. Who's going to pay for those costs? Yeah. 20,000 students. And also I have a data here with the school public ratio from like Jericho, teacher and student ratio, they have 1 to 9. Green Neck 1 to 10. Jericho 1 to 11. New Hyde Park will have 1 to 16. Right. We don't want to increase the size.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, more than that. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Do we get a chance to vote this project?
As I said, we will not make a decision tonight. There will be another public hearing, at least one more. There's a lot more information for the board to obtain, digest, and consider, as well as your comments and the concerns that we heard tonight. Now it's 10 o'clock. We're going to wrap up the hearing tonight. As the attorney advises me, I need to give the floor to the applicant for closing remarks, which I will do so, and then we will pass a couple of resolutions.
I just want to thank you very much for your time tonight. I know this is a process, like you said, and we can plan a community outreach meeting if that would be helpful prior to Okay, so again, I do thank you for your time, and we will, at the next hearing, address all the comments that were presented today and have additional information for you on the questions that you asked. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And then, so at this point, we need to make a resolution declaring lead agency for environmental review in connection with the proposed action. Whereas the Incorporated Village of New Hyde Park Board of Trustees, hereafter the Village Board, has received a special use permit application on behalf of 300 South 12th Street LLC for a development incentive bonus pursuant to Section 195-3.2 of the Municipal Code of the Incorporated Village of New Hyde Park to allow the development of a 4-story mixed-use building with retail on the first floor, 71 residential units at the property located at 300 South 12th Street, New Hyde Park, New York, an application for site plan approval, an application for architectural review approval, and whereas in accordance with 6 New York CRR Section 617.6A and B, the Board of Trustees has reviewed this proposed action and has preliminarily determined the same as is an unlisted action. And whereas the Board of Trustees seeks to commence a coordinated environmental review of the proposed project under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby declares its intent to act as lead agency in the coordinated review of the proposed project. May I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. At this point, we're going to, Ben, what's the correct motion?
Motion to continue the hearing.
So, may I have a motion to continue the hearing?
Motion to continue.
All those in favor? Aye. Passed unanimously. Thank you very much, folks. We'll be in touch when we will have a next meeting, and we'll have it at a much more